And we continue at 1:07 in the afternoon. Talk Radio 790 KABC, the John Phillips Show. Broadcasting live from the Morongo Casino Resort and Spa Living Room Studios. Mr. Randy Wang's at the sports desk in Culver City.
John, here's a little preview of some of the nonsense coming out of the Defund the Police caucus at the LA City Council meeting yesterday.
We have a shared vision of where mental health calls answered by clinicians, where neighborhood conflicts are handled by unarmed professionals, where public nuisances are dealt with community ambassadors. We all have this vision.
Do we?
No, we don't.
And if he ever paid attention to what goes on in San Francisco, we know how that works.
People have been stabbed in Urban Alchemy. They've been shot. They've been attacked. And they still show up every single day as an alternative to policing for this community.
Yeah, that was before she became all the way pissed off and started screaming at people as she was leaving court.
And I want you to be all the way pissed off.
I listened to that whole 3-minute rant to London Breed yesterday. It was gold.
800-222-KABC is the telephone number, 1-800-222-5222. It is our pleasure to welcome our next guest to the program. She is a columnist for the Southern California News Group, which is, of course, the LA Daily News, the OC Register, the Riverside Press Enterprise, and most importantly, Randy,
the Redlands Daily Facts.
She's also host of the Howard Jarvis Radio Show, which airs Monday nights right here on AM 790 KABC. You can follow her on Twitter at Susan_Shelley. Susan Shelley, welcome.
Thank you, John. Great to be with you.
Now, Susan, you and the good people over at the Howard Jarvis Taxpayers Association have a big announcement to make.
We sure do. Signature collection has begun on the initiative to repeal the death tax, to fix that part of Proposition 19 that is causing people to lose the property that they own when their parents pass away. So we are going to fix this. We need 1 million signatures. And the big news is that you can download a real legal official petition at home and print it on your own printer. Just go to repealthedeathtax.com and download the PDF file. It has all the instructions and the petition, really easy to do. Send it back, and we'll get 1 million signatures in no time statewide.
People complain often about the cost of living in California being so much higher than in other states. And they think it's just because the cost of gasoline is higher, and the cost of food may be higher, and the cost of housing may be higher. But they don't really understand why it costs so much more. It's taxes like this that cause the prices to go through the roof for people, particularly when you're talking about housing and the cost of living.
That's absolutely right, because this death tax doesn't just apply to people's residences. It applies to business properties like apartment buildings. Under the old rules, you would be able to inherit a duplex, a fourplex, a small apartment building, or a small restaurant or a business property, and $1 million of assessed value under Prop 13, that lower assessed value, would be excluded from reassessment, so you didn't get a tax increase. Well, now, under the rules that Prop 19 set, now it's all reassessed to current market value. And the property tax bill just quadruples for a lot of people, and they're forced to sell. And if they don't sell, then certainly all the prices go up.
And we got this idiotic tax due to the unholy alliance of the California Realtors Association and the public employee unions, right?
Exactly. The California Association of Realtors, their Sacramento office, not all the individual realtors, but the Sacramento lobbyist office, they made a deal in Sacramento to include this tax increase, which is the biggest property tax increase in the history of California. They included it in this measure that looked like it was about helping wildfire victims and seniors who wanted to move to a new home, which it did, and that's fine, and we're not changing that. But this tax increase that they slipped through in the fine print, this we have targeted. And we need everybody's help to download the petition, sign it, and send it back.
We're speaking with Susan Shelley, who you can follow on Twitter at Susan_Shelley. Susan, we recently were hit with horrific storms, particularly in the Coachella Valley, the mountains, Big Bear. I know parts of Los Angeles County, like the Antelope Valley, the Santa Clarita Valley, cities like Glendora in eastern L.A. County also got hit pretty hard. And like clockwork, what we're seeing from so many public officials is we have to get serious about combating global warming. We need more clean energy in California. If we had more clean energy in California, this wouldn't have happened. I'd like them to explain to me how it happened 100 years ago, but this is what the position that they're taking today. You are someone, and we've talked about this before, who follows the grid, who follows how much energy the state of California gets per day from renewable energy, and it is not enough to keep this state moving, and it certainly didn't cause that storm.
You're exactly right. And just for the record, even if we did everything that the climate activists want us to do in California, it would make no difference to the global climate. All we're doing, and if you press them, they'll admit this, is we are modeling climate behavior for the rest of the world. They call it leadership, but nobody's following. Around the world, countries are burning coal for electricity because it's cheap and available and reliable. And we're fooling around with this nonsense with intermittent energy from the sun and the wind. And here's the thing, it's never enough. Even in the middle of a sunny day in July, it's not even 60% at high noon of what we're using in California. What's filling up that 40%? Natural gas, large hydroelectric, nuclear, and imported electricity from other states when all else fails. And all of these things have been targeted for destruction. The state is on track to close the gas-fired plants. At night, we rely on that for 60% of our electricity, and they were scheduled to be closed at the end of the year. And now there's a desperate attempt to keep them open for 3 years more. They have to stop pretending that we can close them at all. We have to have energy in this state, and sunshine and breezes are not doing it.
You know what this is to me? Because they're doing the same thing in Maui. Why did we have the fires in Maui? Well, it's climate change. It has nothing to do with the fact that the guy in charge of the water didn't release the water that they could dump on top of the fire. Oh, no, it's climate change. This is the secular version of the religious kooks who, whenever something bad happens, they say, well, obviously it happened. You pissed God off. If you wouldn't have pissed God off, this wouldn't have happened. Well, there's no way you can
right on it.
Yeah, well, there's no way you can prove or disprove if you piss God off. I don't know if he's pissed off or not. He might be all the way pissed off. He might not be pissed off at all. But that's the position they take whenever there's an avalanche, whenever there's an earthquake, whenever something happens that they don't like, because you can't disprove it. If you blame everything on climate change and you say, okay, if it weren't for climate change, there wouldn't have been a fire in Maui, then you give that guy who didn't release the water a pass for not releasing the water. If you say that California experiences its fires because of climate change, that you give the politicians that won't clear out the homeless encampments, which start half the fires, you give them a pass. You give the public utilities a pass for not changing their faulty equipment. They start fires too. And we just continue to behave the way we're behaving, which is causing a lot of the problems that we deal with.
Well, it's a really cynical game. They've created this standard that no one can meet, which is to live without energy. And then when you don't meet it, you're guilty. And when you're guilty, you have to pay someone to mitigate your guilt. And that's the game. And all of these organizations that are seeking climate policies globally, what do they want? They want your money. If you stand on the roof of your house and you throw dollars at the sky, it will not change the global climate at all. And if you send your money all around the world to these other countries that want it because they want the United States to feel guilty, it's not going to change the climate. It's just going to make America poorer and less energy independent, and it's foolish, and it's manipulative, and it's all about the cash.
I notice when you post the pie chart of the energy that we use here in California, and we buy energy from other states, imported energy, they don't break it down in terms of whether or not it's renewable energy, whether or not it's from natural gas or nuclear or maybe even coal. They just say it's imported and they leave it at that. What kind of gas are we typically buying? What kind of energy?
As I understand it, some of it is coal, some of it is natural gas. I don't really know what the whole mix is because we don't ask. We just import it from states that are not quite so precious about everything.
So we just let someone else do our dirty work and we use it because if we didn't, the lights would go out.
Exactly right. Unless you live in a place where it's never summer and it's never dark, this doesn't work. This whole plan to go 100% renewable is nonsense. It is nonsense. And one of the most sinister things is in the bill that did this to us, which I think was SB 350 a few years back, it required utilities to sign 10-year contracts with these solar and wind providers, which locked in high prices. So even if the price of solar and wind energy came down later, you, the ratepayer, are still stuck with this 10-year contract. That was in the law. And on the other side, the gas-powered plants, they can't sign long-term contracts because they're scheduled to be closed in 3 years. Right now, they were scheduled to be closed in December. So they can't sign long-term contracts, so you're paying more for that also. And you're paying for all of it in your electricity bill. And what are you gaining? When you take your electric car at night and you plug it in, it's running on natural gas. No one knows this, but this is the truth.
According to the climate change hysterics, what's original sin for us? What's original sin for humanity? Is it when John got his driver's license, or are we going all the way back to the Industrial Revolution?
I don't think they really care. They'll blame you for whatever. I think once they were mad at us for hairspray and air conditioning and really just anything that makes life better, that makes people independent, that allows people to do things without the permission of all these groups and all these government people that the groups help to elect. If you can do stuff without their permission, then you don't owe them any money. If you're not sorry and you're not guilty, then you're not going to pay them. And if you don't pay them, then how are they going to pay for all of their vacation houses?
We're not going back to an agrarian lifestyle. We're not all going to be Daryl Hannah living in trees. We've been exposed to air conditioning. We've been exposed to things like airplanes. We're not going backwards. We'll build new ones. We'll build better ones. We'll build more efficient ones. But we're definitely not going backwards. And because of that, we're going to need energy to keep our economies going. If we don't produce this energy that keeps the lights on, that keeps people going to work, that keeps people going to school, that transports people from point A to point B, can you imagine the human suffering that would exist on planet Earth?
That is really true. And then the geopolitical war aspect of an energy crisis has to be considered too. If we're not energy independent and we're scrambling around to get oil or gas from other countries because we refuse to produce it in the United States, as California is refusing to produce it, and so we're importing it from everywhere else. If we do that, then it has geopolitical consequences, not just for us, but for our allies. So this is a really serious thing. Everybody has to grow up and tell the truth about energy because we can solve all of these problems overnight if we repeal these stupid laws.
And it seems like every decade or so, or every couple of decades, there's a new fad. Remember when it was overpopulation that they were all worried about, and we had to do something about overpopulation, and Helen Caldicott wanted to airdrop condoms over Africa and all of those things, and the Sierra Club was actually really hawkish on the border. They didn't want any illegal immigration at all, the environmentalists, because they thought that humans were the problem. And if we could just reduce the number of humans on planet Earth, then then Earth would survive.
Well, that's a death cult. That's what that is. And, if you want to be superstitious and you want to treat the climate and the earth like a religion, there's a long history of that in human civilization, if you can call it civilization. People were conked on the head and dragged to a mountain to appease the gods of weather. I don't think that's the way we need to live in the 21st century in the United States. What we need is power plants. What we need is rational policy. We need clean air, but we also need electricity, so we have to work out these things and stop pretending that we can run the state on solar and wind because it's impossible.
Now, we do bear some responsibility on this show for the storms that hit California this last week. Because as Randy pointed out, every Friday we have Jimmy Buffett Friday, which is pretty much a 3-year sustained rain dance that we've been doing.
Well, it's worth it.
Susan Shelley, columnist at the Southern California News Group, co-host of the Howard Jarvis radio program, which airs Monday nights right here on AM 790 KABC. And if people want to get those petitions that they could print out and sign, how can they do that one more time?
Go to repealthedeathtax.com.
Susan Shelley, everyone. Thanks so much for stopping by. If you'd like to email the show, you can do so at johnnydon'tlikeshow@gmail.com. That's johnnydon'tlikeshow@gmail.com. And if you want to refer back to the interview that we just did with Susan Shelley, when one of your friends is saying, California has all renewable energy, and you need the facts to arm yourself with, you can do that easily.
That's right. Go to KABC.com, click on podcasts, and go to the Apple Podcasts app, iHeart, Spotify, search for The John Phillips Show, hit subscribe, download all the episodes, or search for The John Phillips Show on YouTube. And that way you'll have everything you need the next time a friend of yours quotes Gavin Newsom.
Weather whiplash.
At the LA City Council, the new proposed LAPD contract was being debated and voted on. We, of course, are used to socialists who want to defund the police showing up to all of the meetings at the LA City Council and cursing out anyone who they disagree with. They have some members of the LA City Council who think like they do. And the meeting, Randy, went pretty much exactly the way you would expect it to go.
That's right. The final result was 12-3, but the three votes were very loud in their opposition to making sure that this city can act safely.
Yeah, clap that up.
Hugo Soto Martinez being one of them.
Because we are the defund the police people, right?
Ulysses being the other. And the third being Nithya blame Toyota for the catalytic converters ramen. Here is what she had to say as she blames the police budget for the reason her office can't get anything done.
And major threats to our public safety are simply unable to be addressed. I don't have staff at DBS to inspect bad actor developers in the hillsides, increasing our threat of mudslides during torrential rains. I can't get abandoned buildings that pose fire and safety risks to their neighborhoods.
Do you hear that in the background? It's the world's smallest violin.
Secured and closed off fast enough. I can't get sidewalks repaired fast enough. I can't get trees trimmed fast enough. I can't design and build traffic lights and safer streets at a rate anywhere near what this city's deadly streets call for. I can't get 911 calls answered quickly and effectively because they also have a massive shortage. And this contract, because of its enormous fiscal impact, potentially prevents us from being able to build out an alternative response to nonviolent calls for service, which are the majority of 911 calls.
Yeah, but we don't need that.
Think about what she's saying here. She's saying because the city, which is an under-policed city, is trying to no longer be an under-policed city, it's going to come from her slush fund, and she would prefer that the money go to her slush fund.
If we spend all this money to keep, retain, and hire new cops, where's all of our money for the ambassadors?
We are in one of the highest tax states in the nation, in one of the most highest tax cities in the state. And she's complaining that they don't have enough money to enforce building codes, and they don't have enough money to maintain the sidewalks and perform the basic duties of government. Well, how is it that they can do it in Barstow where there's no money? How is it that they can do it in all those podunk towns in the Central Valley where there's no money? Los Angeles has a huge tax base. The reason that they don't have money to perform the basic duties of government is because of their mismanagement.
Many of which are calls regarding homelessness and mental health issues, a system that if we actually invested in building out citywide, we could actually free up armed response for violent and serious crime.
Yeah, but what do you do when the homeless person gets violent?
Well, that transitions real fast, doesn't it?
So then the service provider calls 911 and is stuck on hold.
After they get stabbed.
If we can build out a public safety response that truly makes sense for LA, and I think we can do this, that makes sense for the range of public safety issues that this city deals with, we won't lose a step when we're hit with financial crisis or macro trends that cause these shortages in the first place. You
mean like when you and a bunch of other people called to defund the police?
You know, it's real easy for her to say we spend too much on police when she blames the automakers for the theft of the catalytic converter. Just think about that for a second. If suddenly the problem is no longer with the criminal, if the problem is with the manufacturer, then that's something that requires a class action lawsuit from someone other than the city. She wants the state to sue them, which is what our idiotic attorney general is doing because he's ideologically symbiotic with her.
In fact, he had a comment about that very subject.
Every type of leadership is about meeting the moment and rising to the occasion, and this is what's required. And so we're stepping up and getting it done.
Man, that man's a poet.
We can be expanding our public safety response while other cities are cutting back because of poor investment.
Wait, we can expand our public safety response by not increasing the police budget?
Why is it that I feel totally safe in Newport Beach and I don't in Los Angeles?
Especially her district in Sherman Oaks lately, where the breakfast taco place is cash only thanks to her.
Why do you feel safe in Burbank but not her district?
The vision we need to be working towards, the vision that I believe in so strongly, that someone shows up when you call for help, and it's the right person for whatever issue you're facing.
What the hell does that mean?
It means absolutely nothing. This is psychobabble. This is what they teach them at the social work schools right now in the United States. And these people internalize it, they believe it, and when they get elected to office, they try to act on it. What they don't know is that it's not reality. What they're doing is crazy.
I feel a very powerful responsibility to move us towards that vision in this role, and I fear that this contract, with its enormous fiscal impact on the city,
Notice how they're all budget hawks when it comes to the cops.
Yeah, suddenly they become John Kasich.
Leaves us less capable of doing that, and it is for that reason that I will be voting no today. Thank you.
The one time this woman has ever said no to a union, and it's only because it involves public safety.
All right, I got to give you a choice here, John. Who do you want to hear next? Ulysses, Imelda, or Hugo?
Let's do Imelda. Actually, but before we go to Imelda, I think we should do the flag salute.
Oh, you mean the flag salute from our brand new member of the LA City Council, Imelda Padilla, who got voted into Nuri Martinez's district with a whopping 10% of the population voting. This Imelda?
Mr. President, today's Tuesday. It's time for the flag salute.
Wonderful. If everyone could please rise for the flag salute. Councilwoman Padilla, would you please lead us in the flag salute?
Ready? Begin. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with justice
and justice for all. Great, thank you.
This woman graduated from UC Berkeley.
Now, she ended up being a yes vote, but her reasoning as she gets to there is interesting, to say the least. Here is brand new city councilwoman Imelda Padilla.
You know, I honestly didn't know whether to talk or where to start.
This girl is not ready for prime time.
You think?
But given that so many people from the public have mentioned my name and asked me about my thoughts about this contract, I felt like I needed to. So I want to start with what I actually said in committee, which I want to give the CAO a lot of congratulations for what we see right now on the screen, which is that they were able to negotiate the exception of unarmed response functions. I think that that's a good step in, a different direction, something that's going to let us...
The thing she lights in the contract is the unarmed responders.
The otherwise known as waste, fraud, and abuse.
A different direction, something that's going to let us do something differently in the future. So I think we need to give credit where credit is due. And also... today...
Is she winded, or she has just no idea where the sentence is going?
I don't know, but she sounds like me whenever I have to run 20 feet.
And also, today it is...
She sounds like a smoker.
Yeah.
Today it is my older brother's birthday. He will be turning 41, and I believe we are now at year 19 that he has been incarcerated.
What?
Wait, which council district did he serve?
I think this might have been for something that wasn't a political corruption crime.
Today it is...
They don't give you 20 years for that.
Today it is my older brother's birthday. He will be turning 41, And I believe we are now at year 19 that he has been incarcerated. And it is because of the experience that I had with losing him back in 2015 that I have dedicated my career to doing things on the preventative side.
Wait. She lost him in 2015, and he's been in prison for 19 years?
I don't actually understand the math, and there's no way we're going to understand, so we just have to move on.
Wait, was he sentenced to 19 years in prison?
I wish I knew. I got to do the research here.
Rewind the tape. Let's just make sure we're hearing this correctly.
You know, today it is my older brother's birthday. He will be turning 41.
She says will be, so he's not dead.
Turning 41. And I believe we are now at year 19 that he has been incarcerated.
Okay, so he's 40, getting ready to turn 41. She said he's been in prison for 19 years, which means he was sentenced to something when he was 21 years old.
In 2004.
Okay. And that probably means the crime was committed a year or two before that because it takes forever to go to court.
And it is because of the experience that I had with losing him back in 2015.
Maybe he got out and went back.
That I have...
2015. If he went to prison in 2015, he's been incarcerated for 8 years.
Yeah, I don't know, Imelda.
That I have dedicated my career to doing things on the preventative side of keeping young people out of incarceration. And trying my best to do things related to reducing the school-to-prison pipeline, because I truly believe that it was the schools, the status of the schools, and the lack of social services that led him into such a destiny.
What did he do?
I'm going to try to find out during the commercial break, but...
if he was 21 when he committed the crime, let's just say that he's been incarcerated for 19 years. If he was 21 when he committed the crime, then that was at least, I mean, assuming he didn't get held back a year or two, that's at least 3 years outside of LAUSD. What are you doing blaming LAUSD for something happened 3 years after he was a student there?
Trying my best to do things related to reducing the school-to-prison pipeline, because I truly believe that it was the schools, the status of the schools, and the lack of social services that led him into such a destiny.
If we only had more services, my brother wouldn't have committed the crimes that he committed.
Okay, I can't do math in the slightest, so take that for what it's worth. But the numbers that she just gave out don't make sense in any way, shape, or form.
They do not. And as of right now, every piece of research that I'm finding has no information on what the hell her brother did.
Therefore, now that I am here in the capacity of a council member, and I am, put in a position to make decisions like this and what the future of policing is, I think back to the time when...
We should have voted for the woman that was crooked with Curran Price.
There was a guy in Louisiana by the name of Edwin Edwards, who was a governor, who was extremely corrupt. When I say extremely corrupt, I mean, think Boss Hogg. And he was the Democrat in the race, and he was running for governor against David Duke, who used to be the Grand Wizard of the KKK. And Edwin Edwards actually produced bumper stickers that were used in that race that said, "Vote for the crook."
I think back to the time when 10 patrol units came just to get him.
What did he do?
10 patrol units? 10. Not Andy and Barney. 10 patrol units.
And got
was it, the SWAT team?
And got at least 19 years in this state?
And if he was getting out in a year or two, she would have included that in the story.
But now I'm a council member, and I can't even get a senior lead officer to be able to get someone to take care of our Care Plus when they happen to be on vacation. So something is going on over in the policing, at the police stations as it pertains to their staffing and their ability to get things done.
I don't know what to make of that.
She makes starting salary $225,000 a year, people.
Here's what I can say. She ultimately voted the right way.
She did.
So give her credit for that.
She's a step above Hugo and Nithya and Ulysses. But, oh, wow, did this girl hit the lottery.
You know what this is like? This is like finding a plane ticket, a cheap plane ticket, where you're going someplace, and every flight that you want to take is very expensive. So you've got to go L.A. to Vegas, Vegas to Midland, Odessa, Midland, Odessa to Northern Arkansas, Northern Arkansas to Tampa, and Tampa to Miami. But you pay $132 for the ticket. You get there, your luggage gets there, so you can't be unhappy, but man, was it a ride to get there.
That's Imelda?
As I said before, kids, you get the government you deserve. What's wrong with you? All right, Randy, you did some digging during the commercial break to try to find out if we could determine just exactly what Councilwoman Padilla's brother did to get him locked up for 19 years.
The first thing I needed to find out was the brother's name. So on an interview when she was running for office, she told USC Annenberg Media that her brother's name was Antonio Padilla, who fell victim to the school-to-prison pipeline and is still in prison. So I just searched the name Antonio Padilla, prisoner, and what do you know? I find a story going back from 2018. Parolee who led police on a wild chase through Orange County charged with multiple felonies, including carjacking, assault on a police officer, assault on a police dog, and apparently he's a third striker with prior convictions for robbery, making criminal threats, unlawful possession of a gun, burglary, and inflicting corporal injury last year, in 2017.
And, of course, he's from my hometown.
Yes. So if this is correct, and we're going to say allegedly because I'm only going by the name that was given and somebody that has the record that's the same age, that's probably the same guy, but it looks like Imelda Padilla's brother is a career felon.
Well, if it weren't for the city of Los Angeles not having after-school programs, he wouldn't have never been involved in that high-speed chase.
He ended up pleading guilty to that carjacking with that Orange County police chase where he attacked the police dog, but he would have faced up to 120 years in prison.
I'm kind of surprised in California they put anyone in prison for 120 years.
Well, you got to remember, he got busted in Orange County.
That's true. But she's probably thinking, well, who cares about a high-speed chase? They're letting the Mansons out.
So this is the school-to-prison pipeline for this guy, which we believe is Imelda Padilla's brother. We're going to do as much research as we can to confirm that, but it sure seems like this is the guy.
So it wasn't 19 years that he served so far. Maybe cumulatively he served 19 years, but not in one stretch.
No, he got sentenced to 19 years for this crime.
Okay, but he did time for the previous crimes, too.
He's been in and out of prison his entire life. But this specific case that he pled guilty to, the high-speed chase in Orange County, he pled guilty to carjacking and assault on a police officer and assault on a police dog. That one, he got 19 years. And that was in 2019 when he was 38, and she just said he's turning 41. I think we got the guy.
See what happens when you cut music and arts from the budget?